Hello and welcome to Hospitality Hotdish, fresh from the oven. I am Kate Conroy, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships here at Hospitality Minnesota, which is a member-driven organization dedicated to educating, supporting, and advocating for Minnesota's hospitality industry. What you can expect from the Hot Dish are conversations with restaurants, hotels, resorts, campgrounds, and the allied members who support those businesses in the state of Minnesota. We release a new episode every other Thursday, so be on the lookout for those. Speaking of which, you can find the Hot Dish just about anywhere you can download a podcast. We even put them up on YouTube as well, so check us out. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review so that the algorithm gets us in front of other awesome people just like you. With me today is David Benowitz with Craft and Crew. David, say hi and let the audience hear your voice.
Hello, Kate, and hello, everyone listening today. Pleasure to be here.
It's so good to have you. We are really excited. You're a board member. You've been a member of Hospitality Minnesota for a long time, and so it's really nice to have you with us today. So we're gonna jump right in with a very hard hitting question. David, what is your favorite hot dish?
Kate, that's a challenging one. I was thinking about this just because of the name of the podcast as well, and I'm not big into hot dishes, to be honest with you. I know, right? But if I had to pick one, and I don't even know if this is considered a hot dish, it would be like macaroni and cheese hot dish. Is that a hot dish?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a hot dish. I
Yeah.
don't know that in Minnesota it definitely qualifies, but in other areas of the country they would call it a casserole, which we
Yeah.
definitely would refer to as a hot dish. And
Yeah. So my
Jesus,
family was never a big like hot dish family. So I don't know.
it's
We
incredible.
whenever we brought food over to like reunions or friends' houses, or anything for the holidays, it would be something other than a hot dish. I don't know. Maybe we're the
Huh.
outliers.
So like a cold salad?
Maybe.
I'm like, what else is there? Okay, now let me say this. In other areas of the country, lasagna is considered a casserole, which
Mm,
we would consider a hot dish. I don't know anybody in Minnesota who considers lasagna hot dish,
yeah.
but like lasagna is an acceptable answer, I guess, in some cases. But mac and cheese is a great answer though.
No, I do enjoy some great mac and cheese from
So
every
when you
now and
make
then.
it, do you do like the roux with the flour and like the cheese sauce? Do you get like into it, or is it more thrown together?
Kate, that's a great question. And me being in the hospitality industry for 20 years, you would think that I cook frequently and have all these amazing recipes. That's just not the case.
I've just outed you. I'm so sorry.
So you would have to ask my wife. She the great cook
That's amazing. Okay,
and has all
that's
the secret has all
unacceptable.
the secret recipes. So and I'm
It's a totally acceptable answer. I like it.
I'm just trying to be honest. Just trying to be honest.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, David, in terms of hospitality, what is your why?
Yeah, so I love this question, and I go back to this frequently, Kate, and it's a big reason why I am in the business I'm in, and my why is really to help people, specifically in hospitality, um, in terms of their career pathway. When we launched EOS Traction, which is a business mythology that our restaurant group is on. And we launched it back in 2015. We established our company core values, and one of them being crew development. And that was a, a really big piece of me personally. And I wanted to bring that into the business as well. Thankfully, at the leadership team at that time, it was also important to them. So we made it one of our 5 core values. And ever since then, we've had a huge emphasis on developing and educating our staff, not even specifically just with hospitality focused training, but also with management training and leadership training, communication, speaking, It's always been a big piece of me personally to constantly improve and develop myself. And again, we want to bring that same mentality to the organization. So when I think about the why, uh, and I speak on this too, like if you're in this business just for the money, you're in the wrong business, right? Because number one,
Yes.
margins are thin. Like the average profit margin of a restaurant nationwide is, I think, 3 to 5%, right? So when
Hmm.
you compare that to other industries, and you tell people that, they're blown away. Like even some of my closest friends, I said, that the average profit margin of a restaurant is 5%. Like, there's no way. I'm like, yeah, it's true, right? So
Yep.
if you're in this business just for the money, it's going to be challenging, right? Can you make money? For sure, you can, but there has to be a bigger purpose of what you're doing. And really that purpose for me is to, see and coach our people develop themselves. Um, and look, when, if and when someone does leave our company that's in a management role or a leadership position, and I know that we've given them the tools and the resources and education to develop them into the next stage of their life or their career, like that's a win for me. Like I don't
Yeah.
look at it as a loss. So really, that's really my why.
I love that. And somebody said to me once, when I entered management, they said, "Don't worry about losing good people because if they're really good, they were never yours to begin with. They're always going to like grow beyond the four walls
Correct.
of what you provide, right? So you want them to succeed because if they're good, you can't wait to watch what they're going to do next, right?
That's exactly right. And look, I have the mentality if a good person does leave, everything happens for a reason, and eventually, if you have done the right thing and you've treated them the right way, uh, they're going to talk about that experience in some capacity down the line, and that's going to come back to us in a positive way, and that could be from a supplier relationship, that could be in terms of uh, getting another employee down the road that's competing for the same position with another restaurant. Who knows? Like that's my mentality. I've always thought that way, and so far it's worked out pretty well.
No, I think that's great. It's karma in some
Karma,
respects.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Great
yeah.
answer.
yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. David Benowitz with Craft and Crew. What is your favorite Minnesota escape?
Yeah. So when I think about escapes, growing up, Kate's every single summer, and it's been inconsistent over the past 10 years. So I have to get back on track. But every single summer, I always go somewhere up north with
Ooh.
my older brother and my dad, sometimes some other family members to do a fishing trip. And
Ooh, fun.
that was always like the one time of the year where I, could put work down, not think about anything, especially, 10 years ago, the cell phone reception in certain parts of northern Minnesota wasn't very good. And then maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
still the case, right? Um, and I'm pretty much addicted to my cell phone. So to not have access to
Same.
your phone, even for 48 hours, is a pretty great feeling. Um, Now we haven't been as great about that over the past couple of years in terms of going up north. But we actually just did talk about my dad and I, my business partner, about doing a golf trip up north um, over the course of this summer, probably later August, September. So, um, and it really anything, in terms of specific locations, I don't have one. Boundary Waters, been to a couple of times. Also, I'm just going to like Craigens or Madden's up north too
Yep.
is always a good time. So there's some great
So,
golf
a
destinations.
follow-up question. I saw
Yes.
recently on Instagram there was this whole map of Minnesota and what constitutes up north, and there were these
Uh-huh.
lines. Do
Yep.
you have any strong feelings about what constitutes up north?
Yeah. I don't.
You don't. Good for
I don't.
you. Not
I
taking a
don't.
stand.
No, no, I really don't. Yeah. I I feel like whenever we did go up, it was always like on the border between, Minnesota and Wisconsin. So, yes, Minnesota, but probably a lot of the destinations that I went to over the past 20 years have been in Wisconsin. So is that
Okay,
considered up north? I
interesting.
don't know. So,
I don't know. I
yeah,
mean, when I
yeah,
was growing up, I grew up on the east side of St. Paul, and St. Cloud was at that, when I was growing up, far enough away that my parents referred to it as up north. But
yeah,
now people would scoff at that. People would say, St. Cloud, that's just like
St.
almost a
Cloud.
suburb of the cities now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess I consider Canada as up north too. A few times we went to parts of Canada too.
That's pretty
So,
far up north.
yes, yeah.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about what you do for Craft and Crew?
What I do. Well, that has evolved a lot. What I do today versus what I did, 20 years ago. But today, I would say, like, I'm not really big into titles, right? Like, I want to help out everyone, but I am the co-owner of the company. But just because I'm an owner doesn't mean I can't help out with a lot of other areas of the restaurant. So now I oversee um, all of our departments, in terms of our operations and our human resources, our marketing, finance, IT. So there's, we have, 300 plus people in our organization right now. And over the course of the next year, that number will move closer to 400. So it's a lot of people, a lot of managers. Um, so again, it has evolved a lot over the course of time. But it's very important to me and my business partner to, be pretty hands-on with our people and our operations. We still do take, floor shifts at the restaurants from time to time when needed. So that's important just to make a presence and for not only for your staff to see it, but to connect with hourly staff too is really important just to get
Yeah.
to know them more on a deeper emotional level. And that's always been important to me. The more that we grow, the harder that is just to have an understanding of all the staff because
Mhm.
hourly staff turns over more than managers. So I try to do my best, right? But um, yeah, and then you know being part of this hospitality community is, I think, another piece of my role now as a leader of Craft and Crew. Like, I really want to be a resource for other hospitality managers and owners. Look, I don't know everything, I'm always growing and always learning, but I do have experience within this community, and I do have resources. So I do like to, you know, be an outlet and a resource to connect people and just to talk business to help. Um, and part of that, for me back in 2017, we started a local group called Twin Cities Restaurant Leadership. Started with 3 restaurants, and now it's grown into about 35 restaurants, and those are made up of owners within the Twin Cities, and we come together monthly to talk about real-time issues that either the industry is facing around the country or locally, and we process those issues and get feedback from other owners on what they've done in similar situations, or maybe someone they know has gone through a similar situation to get real-time information and coaching. And then about once a quarter, we'll bring in an industry expert that can help us and further educate us and further guide us on how to become, a better restaurant, a better leader, a better organization. So that goes back to what we talked about previously in terms of one of our company core values in terms of crew development. I've tried to bring that same mentality to this group as well, to constantly be improving to constantly educate. And, I'm on the mindset that, there's enough business for everyone out there if you are operating the right way, right? So, um, and that might be a little bit of a different mindset versus some other restaurant owners have. So I'm very open with information that I share with other restaurant owners, and um, there's clearly a group of people in Twin Cities that feel the same way. Otherwise, we haven't grown, you know, to this number without doing what we're doing. So I'm pretty proud of that. And again, that's a big part of um, my role in the restaurant world and the hospitality community now. Um, in addition to that, as you alluded to, I'm a board member of Hospitality Minnesota. That's an important piece to continue to supporting my peers and advocating on behalf of the industry to make sure that we're well represented and have a voice for all of Minnesota.
Follow-up question. You
Yes.
talked about 20 years ago. What was your first job at Craft and Crew? Did you start as a co-owner or did you work
Yeah,
your
no,
way
I did.
up
I
or?
did not. I did not. So yeah, my dad started this company in 1976. And growing up, he was in the bar business, and he actually worked in his father, who worked in the bar business too. And I was never interested in the bar business growing up because my dad was very intricately involved in the day-to-day operation, um, and some work behind the bar, and he was try to support us, so he was working a lot. So I didn't see him a lot growing up, and I knew that wasn't gonna be my path. I was gonna figure out a different way to move my life in a different direction. Not that there was anything wrong with what he was doing, because he built what we had. If he wouldn't have built what he did, we wouldn't have been able to do what we have today, right? So I'm very thankful and very grateful for all those opportunities. With that being said, short, like about a year and a half out of school, when I went to school for business and marketing, um, I was always interested in hospitality, but again, not necessarily the bar business. So it was more on the hotel side. And I still do want to open up a hotel someday. I was fascinated by everything that happened in Las Vegas. My parents brought me there, I think, for the first time when I was 17, and I was just like mind blown by what was going on there in terms of the number of people, the food scene, the gambling, the shows, everything Las Vegas, right? And I was hooked. It's still one of my favorite places to go. That's a whole nother topic. And so I almost went to school for hotel restaurant management, but I decided not to. I graduated. I started working in sales for a very large organization locally here in Eden Prairie. And I was just doing inside sales, working in a small cubicle. And about 6 months into it, I knew that wasn't for me long term. Like I wasn't going to sit in a cubicle and just work on the phone and the computer for 8 to 10 hours a day. It just wasn't me. So yeah, it was July of 2004. My dad had purchased a previous building that was a restaurant, that had a kitchen. First time that he would ever operate a kitchen, right? And he thought he could just wing it without the proper support. He brought in one manager that had food experience, so it was just him and the manager. And I think 3 months into the operation, he called me and said, if there's ever a time that you want to come help, and if you're interested in coming into the business, now's the time, because I really need your help. A little bit over my head, but we can't afford to hire another manager. All right. So I started working on the weekends. And fun fact, which not a lot of people know about me. So my first job ever. At 13 years old, I was a what I call a professional magician. So I learned the skill from a summer camp, um,
Amazing.
and and then yes, and then I got really into it. I started going to the local magic shop in downtown Minneapolis. They had one, and then now there's one called Eagle Magic in Burnsville that used to be in Minneapolis too. So it was all self-taught. I had some mentors along the way. So from about 13 to 18, I had a business doing parties for, kids' birthday parties, weddings. I worked at TGI Fridays downtown, doing table magic on, I think, Saturday nights. I did the same thing at like Champs in Minnetonka. So, uh, so I had the skill set, which I was fairly good at it at that time, right? And so my dad said, why don't you try, if you could just come working on the weekends, maybe on Saturday nights you can walk around to the tables and do table magic. I'm like, that's an amazing idea. So that was like the first thing I did at the restaurant was I walked around on Saturday nights and did table magic for people, and people loved it, right?
Amazing. Of
Uh,
course they did.
and then during the day I would work the floor like as the floor manager. And I didn't know the path for me at that point, but I knew there was a path. Like I knew I could make something better and bigger versus what we had. I just knew we needed more structure. I didn't know how to get there. Like I didn't have any connections at the time. Like I didn't know anyone in the industry besides for my dad. But I knew there was a way. Right. So because at that point I was, eventually I quit my job and then I started working with him full time. And it was probably, I don't know, November of 2005, roughly,
Wow.
is when I started full time. And I knew it would come down to people, right? So I knew I had to surround myself with people that were more experienced in their area of expertise than I was, and to empower them to build our business. So I got a really great tip from a friend who she was in the jewelry business. Her name is Sarah, and I still remember this conversation vividly. This was 2008. So I had been working with my dad side by side for 3 4 years, and we were doing fine, right? But we weren't really growing, and I knew again I knew we needed more people, but we didn't have like the money or the resources to do it, right? So I was talking to Sarah, who had her own jewelry business, and she said, I just hired this intern, and she's been amazing, and she's helped me so much to grow, and now I think I'm going to be able to, hire another part-time person to help my business. I'm like, that's an amazing idea. And she's like, honestly, I was able to find her just because she wanted more experience, and she paid her like a very minimal hourly wage, right? So I'm like, let's try it. So I posted on Craigslist. This is the I think fall of 2008 for an unpaid marketing intern that could help us with, I think it was like with like Vikings promotions, and also help us like get our email database up and right. Because I was sending all my emails out to my personal email address and managing all that. In addition to doing like all the bookkeeping, like I did everything, right? Not everything, but
A
everything
lot.
that we have people to help out with now, I was doing myself, right? Um, and so I found this guy who, was responding to the ad within like a day. He had just graduated from the University of North Dakota in business. He came in and I said, I wanted to do a test run. Can you put together a program? And I don't remember the specifics, but it was around the Vikings, right? To run promotions. I think it was food, beverage related promotions around the Vikings. And he came back the next morning with, really well thought out um, on some type of document promotion to run for the Viking season. I was like, wow, this guy really, is wanting to do this, right? And so the other people I talked to really I presented them with the opportunity, said, let's, take this information, come back, tomorrow and present it to me. He was the only one that really had a plan. Right.
Wow.
So we brought him in. He was unpaid for 6 months, worked for, I think it was like food and gas. That would never fly anymore. Right. So, um, and that was Luke Durheim. And Luke is now co-owner with me.
Oh my
So like
gosh.
we tell this story, and not a lot of people believe us. But Luke and I, we sat right next to each other in the basement of our South Minneapolis location for I think 5 years. He did all the marketing, I did all the bookkeeping and
Operations.
the finance operation stuff, etc. And eventually he wanted to learn more, right? So I'm like, I'm going to teach you everything that I know how to do. So I started teaching him everything that I knew in terms of the operations. And he eventually took over as like the director of operations. And we hired someone else as a marketing intern to take over his place. So that's sort of been the path for us. Now that position, I believe,
Wow.
was paid. So that person now is our director of marketing. We hired her as an intern. And then eventually we hired someone else to take over marketing to do social media as an intern. And now she's our social media manager. So those employees have now been with us for 10 plus years. The model has worked out
Amazing.
really well. But Luke was, I don't know if it was a lucky thought. I don't know. I mean,
It's meant to be.
it's a meant to be. It's a crazy story to find someone on Craigslist that we just jived immediately. We had the same values and morals. We both had the same ideas for growth and just the passion to continue to develop the business and ourselves. The amount that we've been through together now, I mean, he's basically like a brother to me. We
Yeah.
talk, multiple times a day, and, I couldn't have done what we've done up to this point without him. Like there's no possible way. So it's so important to have someone like Luke at your side, that you can bounce ideas off of, that can, help implement, because it do all what we do alone. Not always it lonely, but the capacity that one person has is only so much. And if you want to continue to
Yeah.
grow, you have to surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so keen on that piece of our operation. I'm always thinking about how we can improve from a people end. Um, and even before, and this is a whole other topic, and before like the sick and safe lead went into effect in Minneapolis, like we already had that in place for all of our stores, because I wanted to like set a standard for hospitality in Twin Cities that we would have the best benefits available to our staff. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. I hope we have, because we've been very mindful about the pieces we put in place to support our staff.
That's fantastic. But we're gonna run out of time because I have so many follow-up questions. I can't even answer, I can't even
Yeah.
ask them all. But heads up, the next time I see you in person, I'm gonna need some magic. So just
Yeah.
FYI.
So I did bring it back after many requests from my team. We did a summer manager outing on Lake Minnetonka. And at the end, I did surprise everyone. They didn't know what was going to happen. I did do like a 10-minute performance. It was a lot of fun.
I'm so excited. I can't even wait. Can't even
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
Okay, David, what
Yes.
keeps you up at night?
You know, I'm not a big worrier, Kate. Um,
Love that.
I,
Good for
I
you.
used, I used to be. So I'm not this like perfect specimen by any means. I have so many flaws, right? Um, and like I went through a really rough time in junior high, high school, even parts of like college or whatever. Like I'm when it comes to medical things, I'm really a poor patient, really, really poor. So I like what used to keep me up at night was just like ailments and like medical things and like
Oh,
things I would see on like when I heard about someone like having an issue or I saw it on TV, you know, I would immediately think that what if that happens to me? And then that would keep
right.
me up at night, right? So
Yeah.
I've gotten, thankfully, I've gotten help and gotten through that piece of my life. So I'm grateful, right? So that doesn't keep me up at night anymore. Um, I would say now it's more, look, we have a lot going on. We have a lot of moving parts, and I can talk about that in a little bit in terms of what the next year or two looks like. It's a lot, right? And some people, say, I don't know how you do this. I don't know how juggle, all of these parts of your life. Um, I would say when someone is going through, a hard time within our organization, whether it's to do with the business or doing something to do with their personal life, I do think about that and think about how, either I can help or we can help as a business help them. So I would say that's the biggest thing that keeps me up. Um, because every day there seems to be something new with someone in an organization. And because, we've always been pretty involved in our company, we know a lot about what's happening with our people. And, fortunately, a lot of them do feel comfortable, talking with us more on a personal level too. Not everyone does, but a lot of people do. So I do try to find, ways, if at all possible, and now it's not always possible, to help them. So that's probably what keeps me up and most, more than anything. In terms of, if business is down in one area or something is happening with the industry, naturally, everyone thinks about that, but does it really keep me up at night? Not really. I know, like, I feel that we have the right people and the structure really to get through most things. COVID was probably the hardest thing that we've gotten through, and we were able to successfully do that. And after COVID, like Luke and I always said to each other, if we got through this, we can get through anything, right? We've gone through a lot since then. Like we about a little less than a year ago, we went through a pretty major leadership shakeup. A very long time leadership member left the company. She was heavily involved with, our H department and had a lot of knowledge. We were very thankful to have her, and she did a lot of great things for the company. Naturally, most people would, stay awake at night thinking about how they're going to get through. But, again, Luke and I have always figured out a way and utilizing our resources to get through it and, make things successful. That's just always been our mentality. We're pretty positive people overall. Like
Awesome.
we know things eventually are going to work out, even if we fail the first 20 times. Like, we're going to keep trying new things and a new way of doing it until we get the outcome we want. And just because you don't succeed the first time doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs stop or think they fail because they failed the first time or second time or third time doing it. So that's just the mentality we have, and a lot of that mindset has come from leaders and coaches that we have surrounded ourselves with, and that's a big piece of our success too.
It's fantastic. It's a great answer. Anything coming up that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, there's a few things. So we're opening our first quick serve restaurant in St. Louis Park called the Wells Roadside. It's was inspired by a concept out of California called Gott's Roadside. Not sure if you've heard of it before. But we're going to specialize in a Wagyu smash burger and fresh fries. We're also going to have a couple sandwiches, a salad, soft serve ice cream, shakes, Chicago style hot dogs. It'll be a pretty small menu. Though the thing that's unique about this concept, it used to be a drive-in called the Galaxy Drive-In. It's never had liquor or beer or wine. So we did get approval for a liquor license. So we're going to have tap cocktails, beer and wine. We're
Cool.
also enclosing the entire site so we can be open in the wintertime.
Okay.
Previous to this, it was a seasonal concept and they close in the winter. So we're in construction right now, should be opening mid-August.
Cool.
So that's one thing that's coming down the pipeline. The other item is we're going to be opening another block, our concept in St. Louis Park in Rogers, Minnesota, in the spring of 2025. So we
Wow.
have purchased a property there, the old Rogers Muni, and that happened about a month ago. And we're going to be opening that. Um, Finally, on more of the personal and business side, I talked a little bit about family business before, and and by no means has it been easy, right? It's a little bit easier now, but the first 15 years working alongside my dad, just because other members of the family aren't involved in the business doesn't mean that it isn't hard, right?
Hmm.
So I was at a point in 2000 and I think 12, 13 roughly, where I almost left the business because it was so challenging. Um, my dad and I just weren't really seeing eye to eye with the vision of where we wanted to go. But thankfully, um, we brought in the right people and the right resources to help us get through it. Um, and I'm actually writing a book on family business right now.
That's
And
cool.
and that will be coming out later this year. I have been working on it now for almost a year. Uh, the past couple of months have been challenging just with everything that's going on with getting the editing piece done. So it's written. Now we're in the editing phase. Then it will go back and forth between us and the editor. So the name still isn't finalized yet, but again, this book is to help family members either looking to get into a family business or maybe have just started in a family business or may have been in the business for a while and are struggling with different ways of thinking and structure with any type of family member. We also talk a lot about and different generations of family businesses and how that plays into the outcome, positive or negative within your business. So there's it's been a fun project. I interviewed about 25 family business owners across like 15 different industries to get information, and then I talk a lot about their experience, and then I relate it back to my personal experience as well. Um, so it's about 10 chapters, and the topics really came from those interviews on common themes within family businesses and how people have struggled throughout their tenure and things that they wish they knew today, you know 15, 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 years later that they didn't know when they started. So it's really a blueprint to help family members and guide them through the family dynamic. So I'm excited for that.
I love it. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but my first boss was my dad, who was a small business owner, and I
Nice.
cannot wait to read this book.
Yes. I will share with you as soon as it's out.
Thank you. How
Yes.
can people get in touch with you if they need to?
Yeah, so we can be found at craftandcrew.com, and all of our restaurants are listed on there. That's probably the best way to contact us. If you want to contact me directly, my email address is david@craft, the letter N, and then crew.com. I check my email regularly and happy to touch base with you.
Fantastic. David Benowitz with Craft and Crew, thank you so much for joining me today. And to all of you out there listening, we will see you next time. Bye.